Hello guys, it's Teenage DC Fan back in another video, and there's something to be said about the fact that Black Lightning is given only 16 episodes a season, when Legends of Tomorrow is given 22. But in this case though, I think the shorter season length allows for more concise storytelling, and actually minimizes the need for filler episodes, which often do very little to push the characters on the narrative forward. This season is so strong because it is focused intently on the story it wanted to tell, and everything on screen has been in service of that goal. Black Lightning has maintained momentum by spending roughly the first half of the season in the insular world of ASA-occupied Freeland, exploring characters through their individual's response and adaptation to the circumstances. Though it perhaps took too long for the Markovians to become more than just, boogeymen that Odell evoked to justify some action, that time spent with just the ASA gave the audience much needed context for the motivations and actions of the Markovians and their leader. The ASA detained, experimented on, and killed Freeland citizens under the false pretense of protecting them from a foreign military force intent on exploiting them. Forcing the audience to experience and sit with the ASA's treatment of black folks and metas put us in a space where we could emphasize with Gravedigger and approach him with more nuance than we may have had we not seen firsthand the mistreatment of Freeland's people, which reflect his own experiences actually. So Gravedigger has a grudge against the United States, but instead of taking it out on their military directly, he's coming for other victims of their experiments in a comply or die situation. In his mind, he is liberating Freeland's metas. Where Colonel Mawson wanted to build an army, Gravedigger just wants to save them by forcibly removing them from their homes under threat of death so that they can be free. Yeah. And he is, of course, also a victim, and he is a product of his trauma. So while his logic isn't objectively logical, it is easy enough to follow his internal reasoning. And Black Lightning is entrenched in moral ambiguity, and this episode is shades of gray epitomized. So the ASA has always been a threat to Freeland, and the audience isn't expected to see Jefferson's decision to work with them now as an inherently right or correct, not in the way that the same choice is framed at the beginning of the season. It was much easier to figure out why Jefferson or Lynn working with them when their operations seemed to have a smaller reach. And one could be convinced it was the best choice or the lesser of two evils, but that distinction is a lot less clear since the occupation and the show does not make it black and white for the characters or the audience. So the U.S. created the meta program in Markovia, and it created the ASA. It is thus singularly responsible for everything that is happening, but instead of taking any kind of responsibility, the U.S. military is prepared to nuke Freeland, which just further justifies Gravedigger's hatred and antagonism. He is the clearly established villain, but he also makes several valid points which makes him compelling. It's easy to root against someone who is objectively wrong, but it's much harder when their perspective has validity. And the writers have done a great job of giving different sides equal weight without pushing a strict good guy, bad guy narrative. So Jefferson coordinates a plan of attack for his team to confront Gravedigger when he touches down in Freeland. So he puts himself and Anissa at the front line and puts Jennifer, who is the strongest of the team actually, at the back with the other kids. And of course this makes sense for a father to do, but it doesn't really make sense tactically. So Jennifer, per usual, takes matters into her own hands, and she asks TC to let her know when Gravedigger arrives in Freeland. And when he does, she sneaks off to confront him by herself. Gravedigger is the first known meta, and his unique physiology allows him to take as much of Lynn's meta booster serum as he wants without it wearing off, thus allowing him indefinite use of whatever powers he wants on top of his inherent abilities. Jennifer knows none of this, and she comes at him with everything, and he easily deflects her attack, then throws her against the perimeter, and then she gets taken out. But luckily, Black Lightning catches her before she crash lands and is able to jumpstart her heart with his electricity. And he then comes face to face with Gravedigger, and their confrontation is major, not just because they're two extremely powerful metas, but as Lynn discovers in this episode, they share DNA. So Gravedigger is actually Jefferson's great uncle, and he is the first meta, which explains why the Pierces are the only stable metas in Freeland. So Jefferson won't want to kill his family, but Lynn implores him to choose himself or the girls if it comes down to it. And Jefferson has had to make compromises to do what has been needed during the occupation, but whether he will be able to bend this much is something we'll have to wait for the finale to see. Now, just a few other things that happened in the episode. Anissa asked Grace to marry her, and so their relationship is one of the bright spots of the show, even if the writers haven't always included Grace into the story organically. But the fact that Grace is suiting up and that she's evolving and getting stronger, hopefully that means that we'll see more of her and those two together in the future. Although they were having their wedding, and so like I mentioned before, Jennifer was alerted by TC when Gravedigger showed up in Freeland, so she just left in the middle of her sister's wedding. Like that's kind of rude. And then everybody, the rest of her family, got the same alert like a few minutes later. So why couldn't she just wait a few minutes and, wait for the rest of her family and not get almost killed? Like, she's really stupid right now. Although she is a teenager, and teenagers do some stupid things, and I know that for a fact because I am a teenager. Meanwhile, while all of that is happening, Khalil is struggling to contain Painkiller, and when he runs into Markovians on the way out of Freeland, Painkiller takes the wheel. And it'll be interesting to see whether Khalil regains control, loses it entirely, or if they will learn to coexist. Brandon finally got to Dr. Jace and is trying to get out of her anything he can about his father. And I love that for him, but I'm a lot less invested in this story than I think the writers want me to be. I imagine or hope there will be some revelation about his parentage that will make his vendetta arc pay off. Also, finally, Lala is still looking for Tobias and has taken Dr. Blair hostage and is looking for his whereabouts. And Lady Eve has reached out to Odell with an offer to provide the location of the briefcase in exchange for her old seat at the table. So these are the only derailments from the primary story, and I'm assuming they're setting up things for next season. Otherwise, the finale may have more loose threads than it has time to tie up. But yeah, so I think this was definitely a good episode, and having this shorter season may have actually done this show some good because no filler episodes and it's all just story driven makes this pretty good. And this was a really good episode, and the finale is probably going to be even better. So stay tuned for my finale review, which is, well, it's actually coming up very soon, probably within the next few hours. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hope to see you in the next video, so I can bestow all my DC knowledge upon you.